I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. We have a new host at the MeidasTouch Network. I want to introduce you to him. I'm sure you know him, Denver Riggleman, former senior technical advisor to the January 6th committee, also a former Republican, also a former member, get this, of the House Freedom Caucus. And Denver Riggleman is going to provide deep insight into just how dangerous these Freedom Caucus members are, how dangerous people are like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we will now get unique insight here on the MeidasTouch Network firsthand about how dangerous this MAGA movement is. For the first video, Denver Riggleman is going to expose everything you've ever needed to know, want to know, so that we can protect our safety and security here in the United States of America, and frankly throughout the world, based on the dangers posed by Denver Riggleman's former colleagues. With that said, Denver Riggleman, it's all you.
I'm a former Republican congressman. I'm also a former Freedom Caucus member. Don't be afraid. I'm also the former senior technical advisor for the January 6th committee. I'm author of The Breach, which is about January 6th. And I'm very proud of that book. And also host of The Mighty Peculiar, a podcast and YouTube show I felt I had to start because of the crazy that I saw when I was in Congress, and also because, well, of what I saw during the January 6th investigation. So if we look at Marjorie and we look at Alex, we know that they're no stranger to conspiracy theories or crazy, but we know that they're surrounded by people that are like that too. And how do I know? What are my bona fides and chops that allows me to talk to this, besides seeing all the data for January 6th, besides my background in counterterrorism, the fact I was a United States Air Force intelligence officer, I worked for the National Security Agency, I was the CEO of a company that did this for real. We tracked people in the counter-IED space. We went after really bad guys, and I put bombs on foreheads, and I tracked people's communications. What really gives me the bona fides to talk about that? Outside of that, I was a member of the Freedom Caucus, and I saw it firsthand. My first week in the Freedom Caucus, I got introduced to a conspiracy theory, and I hope you guys do know this. It's a lot of fun, that there's this sort of one world algorithm that can control or suppress conservative speech across all social media channels. It's impossible, right? And here I am sitting in my first Freedom Caucus meeting thinking, and as my head explodes, how did these individuals get elected? It didn't, the old saying is it takes you 6 weeks, right, to figure out that how did all these other people around me get elected? Well, it took me about 6 minutes. It was incredible to me to listen to that. But as we know about Alex Jones, we know about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we know what they did on January 6th. We know how involved they were. We know how crazy the text messages were. We know that on January 6th, as I mentioned, that Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Antifa was behind this. She was already behind the false flag Antifa conspiracy theory. We know on January 17th, she said that we needed martial law. She was that sure about Stop the Steal. She was that sure about the conspiracy theories and this emotion, this apocalyptic battle against good and evil that she was a part of, that we needed to actually, no kidding, go into some kind of weird posture in the United States and martial law so that Biden couldn't be sworn in as president of the United States. Think about that. That should make your head explode. I still don't think people are foot stomping that enough. And they're not foot stomping enough the fact that she was one of the first to actually push the Antifa false flag conspiracy theory. She's the person who believed 9/11 was an inside job. She's the person who wished harm on Nancy Pelosi. She is the one who believed in the QAnon umbrella of crazy. You might say, Denver, we already knew all this. But you need to go back to the text messages. You need to go back on what Alex Jones did that day on January 6th. And you need to look at how their energy never ends, that crazy energy that's even hard for me to match. Because crazy is an energy that dwarfs energy from the same. And that's why when I said that the Burning Man interview was a hoot dog type of interview, it really was, because it really encapsulates everything we know about these individuals, but encapsulates everything we know about the cult of what we see as MAGA now, or self-identified cult members, and those who self-identify as Christian nationalists. So when you're talking about the Burning Man interview, there's a couple of things that should stand out to everybody. And I'm sure everybody here on this network has probably seen it, but I want to maybe explain it to you in a little bit different way. When Alex Jones talks about that they were worshiping this statue, right, or these different type of tokens, right, you're talking about worshiping an idol, something outside of what God would want you to worship based on biblical teachings and writings, Marjorie Taylor Greene did say, well, that's God being God, more or less. So what are they saying? It's a punishment for all those heathens that were there at Burning Man. And that's something that's been a theme even throughout January 6th. And when you're talking about even back to November 3rd, when you're talking about Trump being ordained, right, is that individual that was chosen by on high to be president of the United States. That belief system is still endemic across the United States. And you can see that in polling, whether he's over 70% or he's 40 or points or more above DeSantis. You see that in polling today. And I know people like Denver, we don't grasp polling. We don't really believe polling that much right now. Well, you frickin' should, because he's the presumptive nominee. And I'm going to make that the call right now. He will be the nominee unless he's in jail. And even then, he's going to get a whole lot of damn votes. So when you're talking about the Burning Man conversation, the first thing you should notice, there's already this call to God, or the fact that God is punishing the heathens. But it's the other part you really need to pay attention to. And it's always this sort of that crazy energy I talk about, that it's the deep state or globalists or something beyond their control that are trying to do things to the populace, to the freedom-loving Christians and Americans that we have here. And that is this.
And they're basically probably being brainwashed that climate change is the cause of all of it.
Well,
it's the root of all evil, and it's going to destroy the earth. And they're feeling the panic and
the media is saying that. Oh, this is because you didn't know about climate change.
Yes.
So not only was God punishing these heathens, they were being brainwashed by some other force to believe in climate change. Put those two things together. You have the exact same baseline for conspiracy theories that you saw on January 6th, exactly the same. You have a deep state or globalist, something out of our control, out of a person's control, that's able to manipulate the masses for this new world order, this socialist way of thinking, or this woke way of thinking, right, that's going on right now, especially at something like Burning Man when they're worshiping idols. That's what we saw. Now, as a former member of the Freedom Caucus and as a person who was raised in a very religious environment, it's pretty easy for me to see. But the data backs it up. It's not just about us being anecdotal here, folks. It's about the simple fact is that Donald Trump is leading in the polls. It's the fact that many believe that this is an apocalyptic battle between good and evil. So what we're seeing now in that interview encompasses all of the hashtags, memes, and conspiracy theories that you've witnessed over the last few years. The Great Reset, the Storm, the Great Replacement, the Great Awakening. Where we go one, we go all. Hashtag WWG1WGA. Hashtag Save Our Children. All the things that actually erupted from Comet Ping Pong a few months before the first Q drop. What you're seeing, it might be mislabeled or relabeled or maybe not labeled at all, but you're seeing the same type of conspiratorial mindset, the same type of crazy energy that we've been fighting for years now. Listen, social media and alternative media have really ratcheted it up. It's not just that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, which blows my mind as an elected representative, somebody who loves the Constitution of my country, who's done incredible things for my country. I really have. When I see somebody going on with Alex Jones, they got that stink on them. They got that J6 crazy conspiratorial stink on them. You can't intellectually spoon with the nuts and think you're going to come out clean. You just can't. And when you see people like the Elise Stefanik's and everybody going on Steve Bannon or War Room, you got the same thing, is that they're rubbing their stink off because they want the base vote, but they're willing to go crazy or be in that cynical world, or maybe they're true believers. None of that really matters. What matters is they're pushing this and radicalizing the base to believe in this type of bullshit. So that's really what we're fighting today. All those hashtags, memes, that overarching QAnon conspiratorial mindset, right? This Christian nationalism, good against evil, apocalyptic thing that's going to happen if we don't stop the evil Democrats or the rhinos or the independents. It's all about this far-right, self-identified MAGA portion of the GOP that's here to fight all that evil that's coming down. And that's why the Burning Man interview was so interesting to me. That's why I felt compelled, because I'm looking at two individuals, no matter how hard you hit them, all the lawsuits that have gone against Alex Jones, the crazy crisis actor stuff that he's done, the fact that he minimized the death of children. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was too transactionally crazy even for the Freedom Caucus. It's not that she didn't match their crazy. It's the fact is she leveraged that crazy and she was able to transact with Kevin McCarthy to give her power that the Freedom Caucus didn't have. I mean, come on. She's really that crazy. Is she going to be that transactional? mean, are they really that religious? Isn't this about cynicism? Isn't this about a little bit of crazy mixed in? All of that. How do we match the energy of crazy? Well, what I humbly submit to the people that are listening to this is that you got to up your energy and your passion on the sane side. You can say we need an army of the sane or an army of the rational, but what we really need is we just need people who rely on facts-based insights. We just need people who want truth-based policy. I don't want people voting. Somebody who's a congressman, somebody who's done this. I don't want people voting thinking that they're actually getting their vote recommendations, not from their staff, not from policy, not from experience, not from sober thought and judgment, but they're actually getting their vote recommendations from a little voice inside their head. That's what's happening. So we need to fight the voice inside their head, vote pushers, with the people who believe that votes need to be pushed in a rational way. The fact that we can link what's going on today back to November 3rd, back to January 6th, back to the Proud Boys, back to the Oath Keepers, back to all the DOJ charged defendants and the individuals at the Willard and those people that were part of the command and control infrastructure of January 6th, to me is something that we can't talk too much about because the energy of the sane needs to match the energy of the crazy. Let me end on this note. Today, Enrique Tarrio got over 20 years in prison, and he deserves every year of it. And that makes me proud because it's those individuals who led a fantasy-based insurrection that should be punished. But remember, there's people in Congress right now, even after January 6th violence, who voted to object to the electors. That should make your head explode, and it should show you, and it should teach you that we can't let the past happen again. So come on, you facts-based insights individuals. Let's rise up. Let's fight with courage. Let's fight with a resilience of truth and data. And let's make sure that we meet these people in the battlefield of thoughts and we beat them. Thanks. Again, I'm excited to be here. I hope you tune in next time and have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.